All right, my friends, thank you for joining me today. I got something really good for you. There has been fantastic news this week in the Georgia case against our former beloved president, Donald Trump. And we're going to jump right into it. I want to share this with you. So listen, and then we're going to talk about it in just 1 second. I think you're going to find this interesting.
There's some developments for you out of Georgia we want to bring to your attention. A hearing in the 2020 election subversion case against former President Donald Trump and 18 co-defendants was being held today. And the proceedings are focusing on Kenneth Chesebro and Sidney Powell. They are slated to be tried together next month. But before the hearing, the judge ruled cases of the former president and the other defendants would not be tried with Chesebro and Powell. So what does this all mean? Now let's bring in senior reporter with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, also known as the AJC, Tamar Hallerman, to really break this down for us. Great to have you with us. Just explain, first up, why the judge ruled that the defendants can't all be tried together and that Chesebro and Powell deserve their own hearing.
So there are 19 defendants in this massive racketeering case here in Georgia, and many of those defendants are kind of pulling in opposite directions. We had Ken Chesebro and Sidney Powell who demanded a speedy trial, but there were many others, including the former president, who don't want that. They ideally would want to slow things down or at least keep things going at a regular pace. So many of them have filed their own motions to break away from Chesebro and Powell, or to sever in legal parlance. So that's what this ruling was about today. And basically what Judge McAfee did was split the field into two. We now have two folks, Chesebro and Powell, who will be going to trial on October 23rd. And then there are the 17 others. We don't know exactly when they will be going to court. I think it's pretty safe to presume at this point that it could be heading into 2024 before they go to trial. But for now, there are two groups. It's very possible, this judge noted in his ruling, that there could be more after he'll determine after getting other pretrial motions.
Very interesting. And there are more decisions to come. I understand today's hearing covered 3 motions from the defense. Generally speaking, that is to speak with the grand jurors who handed up the indictment, to unseal witness transcripts, and to disclose the names of these unindicted co-conspirators. Explain why these motions are significant and what it may mean if the defense is approved on these suggestions.
Well, there are 2 grand juries at issue here. There was a special grand jury that met for nearly 8 months last year. They heard from 75 different witnesses, including Governor Brian Kemp, Senator Lindsey Graham, many others. They recommended that 39 people be indicted. The DA, of course, ended up only pursuing 19, but defense counsel wants to see witness transcripts for those 75 witnesses in order to glean the kinds of information.
Remember, folks, when it comes to indictments, the expression is a prosecutor can indict a ham sandwich. So the number of people indicted, in my opinion, is insignificant and really is meaningless. But I digress.
That went into this investigation. The judge is going to determine what he wants to do with that. There are all sorts of discussions today about what the law is in terms of special grand juries, which are very rare in Georgia. There's also a second grand jury that met last month. This was the grand jury that ended up handing up a 41-count racketeering indictment against Trump and others. Defense counsel wants to interview those jurors to ask questions about prosecutors' presentation to them, to get a sense of how much independence there was among jurors, or whether things were kind of spoon-fed from the DA's office. We're also waiting to see how the judge is going to rule on that. As for determining who these 30 unindicted co-conspirators are, that's something that the DA's office said they're willing to hand over to the defense.
And just a reminder for everyone, you can watch this all happen live.
All right, that's good enough. So this, of course, was from CBS News directly off their YouTube page. And let's talk about it for a second here. So, all right. So, great news for Donald Trump. He is going to have a separate trial from the first 2 defendants that requested what's known as a speedy trial, which means they have to be tried right away within so many days, depending on whatever state is trying a particular case. The good news for Donald Trump is hopefully he can keep pushing this and pushing this down the road. Obviously, the irony in this whole situation is our former president is accused of election interference and a whole list of other charges. The funny thing here, the ironic thing, is that this prosecutor, this Fani Willis, she is the one, in my humble opinion, you may or may not agree, that is attempting election interference. They are so afraid of our former president winning and becoming our president again that they are doing everything in their power to stop him. They don't even want his name on the ballot. They want to tie him up in so many trials across the country to where he is effectively not able to get out and campaign. And that's just wrong. What we need to do is knock all this off, and we simply need to show up at the ballot box and take a vote. Right now, Democrats are laughing because they're getting their way. I'm telling you, I talk about legal topics and legal issues all the time, and this is not funny. It's not good for our country. It makes our country a banana republic. It is definitely not what our founding fathers envisioned. And we all need to be cognitive of that. I'm telling you, today it is the Democrats on top of the mountain. The next time around, it's going to be a Republican. And I can assure you, they're not going to let this go without some kind of retribution. They are going to get back at somebody in the future. This Pandora's box, if you will, has been opened ever since that prosecutor in New York City, downtown Manhattan, filed records criminal charges against the president. It's surreal. I cannot believe in a country as great and wonderful as our country is that we would stoop so low and do this and try to take one another out in this particular manner. This is just not good. This is not okay. And trust me, again, if they can do this to a sitting president who's now a former president, remember while he was in office, they were doing all kinds of investigations and all kinds of just whatever you want to call it. They were harassing him and doing everything they could to cause him problems. Imagine a former president of the United States having his house raided. If he can have his home raided, any and every one of us can have our house raided, our personal effects going through. It is very, very troubling. And I can assure you, our founding fathers would be rolling over in their grave if they could right now. We really need to rethink what we're doing in this country. I will tell you straight up, I have never really been a big Donald Trump fan, at least not initially when he first came out. I always admired him for his children because it seemed like he raised good, stable, smart kids. And I was impressed in as much that, generally speaking, when you see someone wealthy with children, they normally end up with children addicted to drugs or children that frankly just don't turn out that well. However, all of his children seem to be fairly well balanced, contributing members of society. Since he's been in office, I have grown to really appreciate what he's done and appreciate what he's done for our nations. I'm not really happy about the January 5th event. However, it has been hijacked and it has blown way out of proportion. And I have a whole lot to say about this as time goes on. You could disagree with me. I may be right. I may be wrong. Feel free to leave me a comment. Feel free to tell me what you think about what's going on in the comments below. But as of this CBS News story, the events of this last week, fantastic news for Donald Trump, because now he does not have to be tried as this Fani Willis wanted, where you have 19 people in one room and she's hammering them. When it comes to RICO type charges, which were originally designed for mobsters. RICO, of course, stands for racketeering, internally corrupt organizations. I've heard different variations of it, but initially that's what the law meant when it was originally passed. It is extremely troubling. They are trying to push a trial so fast. Normally, a standard RICO case, if you just look at the statistics, takes at least 4 years to bring it to a trial. I mean, the president has to have time to have his lawyers go through the volume of evidence that they have. Published reports have it that Fannie Mae's office has turned over literally millions of records to the president's attorneys. And yet they want to have a trial within a month or two. There's just no physical way to go through that many records and be able to properly prepare for trial. But again, that's another issue. There's so many crazy things going on with this case. I like talking about the law. I like talking about how it affects your life. And I'm trying to help you make sense of this nonsense that's going on all over the country. And in this particular case, in the great state of Georgia. Just an absolute shame, but good news for our former president. Hopefully he can get this out of the Georgia state court system and get it into the federal court system. Generally speaking, if he gets it into the federal court system, it's game over. The cases, once they get to a federal court, generally are dismissed. They almost never go to a complete and full trial. So we'll just have to wait and see. But leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I appreciate your time today. I really do appreciate you listening to this video, listening to what I have to say. I really want to hear your comments. I want to know if you like this type of video so I can make more of these type of videos for you. As always, I'm coming to you from beautiful Zephyr Hills, Florida. I am JR Dukes.